The Houston Texans getting busy on a Monday, talking to two different potential offensive coordinators, one a familiar name and one a big surprise name. And we will talk about it. I'll get you everything you need to know about Syracuse offensive coordinator Jeff Nixon. We'll also talk about where he ranks in the candidacy list for the Houston Texans as well as the other confirmed interview that the Texans had today as well. Your questions, comments, joys, and concerns into the chat, and super chats, of course, go to the front of the line. Let's get to Jeff Nixon and who exactly he is, as he is the surprise name that pops up here in the Houston Texans offensive coordinator search. They fire Bobby Slowick last Friday. We put a bunch of names together on a list. We come up with a bunch of different guys, and then they sneak in a surprise guy like this. And frankly, I'm a little upset at myself for not putting him on my initial list. But here's what you need to know about Jeff Nixon, who interviewed for the job. DJ Bieneme was the first local person I saw to put it out there. Jeremy Fowler, the first that I saw on social media with it. So Jeff Nixon is the current offensive coordinator for the Syracuse. Are they the Fighting Orange? Or are they just the Orange? Whatever they are. Orangemen? I don't know. The Syracuse Orange. There it is. He's the current offensive coordinator for the Syracuse Orange. Nixon is a former West Virginia and Penn State running back, and he has coached all over God's green earth at a variety of different spots and coached a variety of different positions. Starting out at Penn State, he bounced around a little bit. He coached running backs, tight ends. He's coached special teams. He's coached wide receivers, and he's coached tight ends at the college level. He's called plays for a few seasons at the college level as well, and he even called plays as an interim offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers when he was there with them. So here's what you need to know about Nixon's recent work, and then we'll comb back through the resume. Again, he's the current offensive coordinator for Syracuse. This year, Syracuse was 21st in scoring offense. You know, I like those numbers. I like scoring offense. Total offense, it doesn't do much for me. The Houston Texans had a couple of good total offense moments over the course of the 2024 season. A lot of good it did them when they get to the red zone. They couldn't put it in the end zone, okay? So scoring offense is what I look like when these guys have coordinated teams. Scoring offense, 21st in all of college football and scoring offense in 2024. That's very impressive. I mean, you think about some of the big-time, impressive offenses in college football, and to end up as the 21st scoring offense in college football. And let's be honest, the ACC is no slouch. I mean, this is not some slappy conference. Like, again, the ACC is not the SEC. It's not the Big Ten, but it's not a slappy conference. It's not like he was 21st in scoring playing in the MAC or the WAC or the Conference USA, stuff like that. So 21st in scoring offense. Now here's the funny thing about Syracuse's offense in 2024, and a really funny thing when you think about the fact that Jeff Nixon is a former running back. Syracuse's passing offense, number one, led by Kyle McCord, who transformed under Jeff Nixon's tutelage. Transformed from a disappointing quarterback at Ohio State that they felt like they had to get out of town, like they felt like they had to get rid of, okay? A number one passing offense with a guy who many believed was a disappointing player last year. And that's really impressive to me. You take a guy who people thought was a little disappointing last year in Kyle McCord, you pull out all the tools, you turn him into a huge passing threat, and you turn it into the number one passing offense in all of college football. That's a really good job by Jeff Nixon and his staff to figure that out. Here's the weird part about Syracuse. Here's the very weird part, especially when you factor in that Jeff Nixon was a running back and coached running backs for a long time. There are 134 college football teams, Division I college football teams. Syracuse finished 126th in rushing. 126th in rushing. the Syracuse Orange finished. So 21st scoring offense, number one passing offense in all of college football, and 126th in rushing from a guy that played running back and coached running backs for a good portion of his career. I found that hilarious when I was looking through the research and paying attention to it and going through it and all the various things that popped up about Jeff Nixon. A couple of other things about Nixon's tenure. I mentioned that he coached all over God's green earth. Some of the stops that he's had in the NFL, he was in Philadelphia from 2007 to 2010 as an offensive and special teams assistant. Guess who the big man was in Philadelphia those years? That's right, Andy Reid. Andy Reid was the big man in Philadelphia. Nixon coached under him on the offensive side. He moved on to Miami for a few seasons and then coached tight ends in 2016 in San Francisco. Now, why is 2016 San Francisco 49ers team important to the larger Texans offensive coordinator discussion? Well, he's important there because that was Chip Kelly's final year in the NFL before he was out of football for a while and got back into college. He coached tight ends for Chip Kelly in 2016 on Chip Kelly's lone season with the San Francisco 49ers. And then Nixon was around for a little while in college. So he was at Baylor. He was the offensive coordinator at Baylor. And I went to one of my college football experts, Shehan Jayaraja, and I said, hey, Shehan, you cover football as close as anybody. Was Nixon calling the plays at Baylor when he was there? And he said, yeah, he was. So here's the 3 years calling plays, again, scoring offense, 3 years of scoring offense at Baylor with Nixon at the helm. 98th, 63rd, and then 27th his final year. And it's worth noting that was the year Matt Rule won Big 12 Coach of the Year and then took a bunch of his staff, including Nixon, over to Carolina and became a part of the Carolina Panthers. So that's where he coached for a few years. And then this is where it gets a little disappointing here on the resume. Nixon takes over for Joe Brady when Joe Brady gets fired in Carolina. Remember, Joe Brady, who is the Bills offensive coordinator, widely thought to be one of the better offensive minds in the NFL right now. Wasn't always the case. Brady got canned in Carolina by Matt Rule. He took over for Joe Brady late in the season. Bad Panthers team. Okay, bad Panthers team. And averaged just 13.6 points per game as the interim offensive coordinator. That's not great. That's not great at all. Okay. And then they did not keep him as the offensive coordinator. They went and hired Ben McAdoo. Everybody got fired in Carolina after that. And then he was the Giants running backs coach in 2023 before, again, going to Syracuse here in 2024. So that's the Jeff Nixon rundown for me. And here's what I really like about Nixon. He's called plays a bunch of different times. So at Baylor, called plays at an interim status for the Panthers. Like, how many times has Jerrod Johnson called plays at the college level or the pro level? 0. Nick Caley, my favorite candidate in the candidate. How many times he called plays at the pro level? 0. Now, the success hasn't been there at the pro level. It's certainly been there in college. You saw him get better and better each of the 3 seasons he was there at Baylor, going 98th, 63rd, and 27th on scoring offense. And then obviously this year, 21st in scoring offense for Syracuse. It's like that's a big plus for Jeff Nixon, the Syracuse offense coordinator who the Texans interviewed today. That's a big plus for him. The negatives, I would say, is, man, to be a running back coach in your previous stops and to have played the position, 126th rushing offense, that's a little shaky, isn't it? Like, it's a little shaky, right? Like, Jeff Nixon, let me make sure I'm not getting stuff wrong here. Make sure he was a running back in college. But, I mean, Jeff Nixon to, not have, he played running back for West Virginia and Penn State. To have that running back background and not be able to run the football at Syracuse, So a big positive here for Nixon. Coached up a quarterback that people thought wasn't any good and turned him into the best passer from a statistical standpoint in the nation. Has experience, 4 years in college calling offense and I think it's 5 games at the NFL calling offense, and with varying levels of success. And I think the negatives would be the varying levels of success from him. Baylor in 2016, before he took over, was 35th in scoring offense. And then they jumped back up to 98th the first year. But there's turnover. You get plays out. So it's easy to excuse. So that's Jeff Nixon. That's who the candidate is. A little background on him. Where does he rank for me in the candidate list? I mean, Chip Kelly and Nick Caley are at the top. But again, Kelly, I don't believe is leaving, but if he'll entertain the job, he's near the top. For me, Nick Caley, the Rams tight ends coach / passing game coordinator, he's at the top of my list. I'd put Dave Ragone, the Rams quarterback coach, ahead of him. I would put Josh McCown ahead of him. Just McCown's quarterback experience as a backup and sort of that pseudo coach for so many years, I feel like is pretty useful. So I'd put McCown ahead of him. I would put Nixon ahead of Jerrod Johnson because of experience. I'd put him ahead of Jerrod Johnson because of experience. I would tell you the experience for me that he has would outweigh the familiarity that Jerrod Johnson has with CJ Stroud. So that's where I'm kind of slotting him, is above Jerrod Johnson, but below a bunch of these other names that we've talked about and hoped the Texans were interested in. And as I mentioned, Jerrod Johnson, Aaron Wilson confirming the news. Hey, Jeff Nixon interviewed, and so did Jerrod Johnson. So the interview for the Houston Texans with Jeff Nixon and Jerrod Johnson are done, according to KPRC's Aaron Wilson. So they've already interviewed Mixon. I keep going to call him Mixon. That is, see, but we already have Jay Mixon. Yeah, Jeff Nixon, Joe Mixon. That wouldn't get confusing at all. I wouldn't lose my mind and accidentally say the wrong name 1,500 times. So, yeah, that would be a little confusing there. So, again, the confirmed interviews, they interviewed Q's OC, Jeff Nixon, and Texans quarterback coach Jerrod Johnson, Aaron Wilson with the report on both of those. Let's get to some of your comments, some of your questions. I know I just kind of gave you the background on Nixon. We'll get to some of these comments. Was he part of the running back brain trust that let Barkley get away? He was not. He was out of the building by then. The Texans should interview Eric Bieniemy as an offensive coordinator. No, thank you. Bieniemy coordinated a bottom 8 NFL offense in 2023, and he coordinated, let me make sure I get it right here, he coordinated the 126th scoring offense in college football last year. So no thanks on Eric Bieniemy. Let's see here. Sure does seem like they're going to F this up and hire a, quote, rookie NFL coach. Well, this guy's got, Cleve, this guy's got some experience. He's got a pretty good amount of experience compared to some of these other guys. Now, obviously, you'd want a little bit more experience. You'd want a little bit more success on the resume. But, Jeff Nixon's got some experience, called plays for 4 seasons in college, called plays for a few games for the Carolina Panthers as the interim OC. Again, varying results, but experience is useful. So I wouldn't necessarily call him a rookie, so Cody, you be the offensive coordinator, okay? I mean, you got mad at Bobby. Y'all had me fired after week 1. Y'all had me fired after week 1 if y'all had me as the offensive coordinator. Okay, let's see here. Chewy says, I don't like that rushing stat. Yeah, that rushing stat's a little curious, isn't it? To be that low in rushing offense. And somebody asked, was it lower than Colorado? No. No. Colorado was dead last in rushing last year in college. It was not lower than Colorado. Nothing was lower than Colorado's rushing total. But yeah, so that's a little background on Jeff Nixon. So Nixon in the books, Jerrod Johnson in the books. Those are 2 offensive coordinator interviews that have happened. Now, here's another element of getting things done, making things happen if you're the Houston Texans, because you're not the only vacant offensive coordinator job out there, because one of the jobs that's out there is arguably a better job than your job. It's a job that has pushed the offensive coordinator to be a head coach in back-to-back years, and that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers job. Now, the Buccaneers offense coordinator job had Dave Canales there. They weren't even awesome statistically, and he ended up as the Carolina Panthers head coach. And then this year it had Liam Cohen there, and he's now the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach. So that Buccaneers job is out there. It's open. We mentioned a ton here on SNL, on this channel, Nick Caley, the Rams tight ends coach / pass game coordinator. Well, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers completed an interview with Nick Caley today. Now, a virtual interview. I don't know exactly the status of what the Texans interviews were. I have to assume Jerrod Johnson was in person based on the fact that he lives in Houston, has familiarity with the building, can get into the building. Unknown on Jeff Nixon. But Nick Caley talked to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, you're not the only offensive coordinator opening out there. And the Buccaneers job is arguably a better job. I mean, their offensive line is really solid. They've got Tristan Wirfs out there at left tackle. He's fantastic. They've got a good offensive line. They drafted that kid from Duke, Graham Barton, who's good. Mike Evans is great. They got 2 running backs. And then Baker Mayfield played his butt off last year. Really good performance from Baker Mayfield. The Buccaneers job is more attractive than the Texans job. And if you want to go try to be the next king, it's a kingmaker spot. They turned the last 2 offensive coordinators into head coaches. Now, you could do the same thing in Houston. It's just a little bit more trouble and trials that you have to overcome if you end up with the Texans. And maybe you want to put together the Ben Johnson plan where you put 2-3 seasons together and then jump when you really like the opportunity to become a head coach. Maybe that's the case, but you can't be just hanging around and BSing if you're the Houston Texans. You got to start snapping these interviews off and get these things going. So Nick Caley is my top choice. He's the one that I hope that the Texans go and get, and he interviewed for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers job. So again, can't be just hanging around here. Can't be just hanging around. Put him on the hopeful interviews list. Nick Caley, Ohio State offense coordinator Chip Kelly. Again, I've been steadfast in that I don't believe Chip Kelly is going to leave college. And I also believe the news that came out of Ohio State yesterday, feels like 5 days. I traveled across part of the country here. The news that came out of Ohio State yesterday about losing their defensive coordinator to Penn State, I wonder if some of the Ohio State faithful would pony up and make it a attractive financial situation if Chip Kelly wanted to hang around. Now, obviously, I feel like the Texans have plenty of money, and if they want to get into bidding war with the Ohio State boosters, be my guest. Coaches are having a little bit harder time getting massive salaries in college because you can now spend some of that money on the players. But Chip Kelly should be in consideration. The Texans should make him say no if he is indeed considering talking to any NFL team. The Texans should be knocking down his door and get him to say no. And if he says no, then you start moving on down your list with Nick Caley, Josh McCown, Dave Ragone, the Los Angeles Rams quarterbacks coach. And now, I mean, if Jeff Nixon can get a nod, you take a look around college and see if some of these other college coaches could get an opportunity, could get a nod. Will Stein in Oregon, the offensive coordinator for the Ducks. I mean, they were number 2 in scoring offense last year, and I think 13th this year. Coached at UTSA before he was at Oregon. Was a high school coach before that, so fast riser through the ranks. So maybe you start picking out some other offensive coordinators from the college ranks as someone on there. So, that's and again, if you're just catching up here, by the way, Clint Kubiak is the Seahawks offensive coordinator. So you're not getting Clint Kubiak. He signed up with the Seahawks. And I got to imagine Seattle was like, hey, now or never, we're moving on. And he was like, well, okay, I can't wait around for an interview. I got to take a job that's there. So Clint Kubiak is in Seattle. I think his brother is going to get the 49ers OC job. So the jobs are kind of drawing up. It looks like the It looks like the Lions have sort of zeroed in on a guy maybe. So, but Tampa being open is a tough competitor for guys that you may want to talk to. Like, I don't know that there's a totality of a Venn diagram where you would be like, hey, like everybody that Tampa talks to, the Texans should talk to. But it's worth getting out there and talking to candidates and getting to them and maybe even deciding on them if indeed you feel strongly about them so that Tampa can't get that guy. Is Chase Daniels looking to OC? I don't think so. I think he's pretty happy. I think he's pretty happy with the TV stuff. Olabosipo. Oh, man, I think I butchered that. Ogamondade. Double O asks, Cody, can you please go talk to Nick and D'Amico? I think they're going to do fine. I mean, look, if they put together a good candidate list and they got some surprise guys like Jeff Nixon on there, like they're going to have a good list. I have to imagine they're going to at least talk to Chip Kelly and Nick Caley. And I mean, I have faith they're going to end up with something pretty intriguing here from an offensive coordinator standpoint. Chewy asks, Cal should call Chip and ask him what his number is to come to Texas. Yeah, Cal McNair's never been afraid to write a check. So that's certainly something that that is not an issue at all. Efrod says we're going to get stuck with McCarthy. So McCarthy is Mike McCarthy, the former Cowboys head coach. That would not be a bad deal. I do not believe Mike McCarthy is taking a coordinator position anywhere, but Mike McCarthy coordinated some really impressive offenses in Dallas. Like he was in charge of the offense in Dallas, and he put together some impressive offenses in Dallas. I mean, Dak Prescott had some career years under Mike McCarthy. Dak Prescott's a $60 million a year quarterback because Mike McCarthy was good at propping him up and getting him going. You know, things overall didn't go great for McCarthy. There were some game management issues, some injury issues, and things like that. But, you know, DeMeco Ryan's in charge of that. McCarthy just run an offense. But again, I don't believe Big Mike is going to take a offensive coordinator job. He hasn't been a coordinator in 20 years. You know, and when last time he sat out for a year. The media did a lot of work for him. And he got one of the best jobs in the country. It's Dallas Cowboys. So I'm not thinking Big Mike is going to find himself with an offensive coordinator job. TK says if Texans promoted Jerrod Johnson as the new offensive coordinator, maybe Josh McCown is the new QB coach. So can't do that unless McCown's contract expired, which I have a hard time thinking it did because he just got to Minnesota. So McCown can't make a lateral move from QB coach to QB coach, so couldn't do that. Certainly could promote Jerrod Johnson. If you liked McCown more, you could put McCown as the OC, keep Jerrod Johnson as the quarterback coach. I don't love that setup, but that's something that you could do if you felt like you wanted to keep both of them. Here's the thing about Jerrod Johnson's candidacy. Like, he absolutely warrants talking to find out, hey, what did you see from your perch as the quarterback coach that we did wrong as a team? Like, where did it go wrong? What did Bobby do wrong? Where are the holes that you see on this team? What did you think about how the team operated doing this and this and this and this? Like, how did you see all of this go down? And then you hit him with the, okay, stuff you're in charge of. Why was CJ Stroud's footwork so sloppy? Why didn't he grip it and rip it when he saw stuff like he did his first year? Like, some of the hiccups from CJ Stroud's 2024 season felt like they were under the purview of quarterbacks coach Jerrod Johnson. So that's a good interview to have in the building just to find out a little bit more, because DeMeco Ryans isn't in all those meetings. He's not in all the quarterbacks meetings. He's not in all the offensive meetings. Like, he's running the defense. He's putting things together for the defense. So, like, he's getting reports, but then it looks bad on Sunday, and it's like, well, okay, well, speak freely. You know, speak freely. Let's see what you got. And for Jerrod, that's also a prove your worth if the next guy wants to keep you. The head coach, the GM, whoever else is in the decision-making process, you know, they vouch for you as well. Jim Hughes says he feels like Chip's the top choice. Chewy doesn't believe in Jerrod Johnson. Jeremy Charles, what's up, Stoots? Thanks for all your videos. Who do you think we're going to get for OC and O-line coach? Well, if you get Nick Caley, he can bring over Zach Cromer, the assistant offensive line coach from the LA Rams. And Cromer's dad is Aaron Cromer, who is one of the better offensive line coaches in football. And Zach has coached with the Rams for a few seasons now, been in coaching for a decade almost. So that's who, my pick would be. If you hired a Jeff Nixon from Syracuse, I don't know who the offensive coordinator is going to be. I don't know who the O-line coach is going to be. You'd have to look through his past, his history, see if there's any crossovers or anything like that. Tay says, don't want Jerrod Johnson simply due to the fact that he was a part of this offense last year as well, not just Bobby and the O-line coaches. Yeah, look, he's guilty by association. The offense wasn't good enough. He was a part of the offensive staff. That may be a hurdle that is too hard to overcome to be an offensive coordinator. But again, it's worth having the conversation. Justin Wiggins, hard not to choose Florida as a place of residence. I don't know. I think maybe you're talking to somebody in the chat. Rick's been on Will Stein, the Oregon offensive coordinator, for weeks. O-line coach is a package deal. Yeah. Look, the cool thing about stealing college coaches is you can steal the whole damn offensive staff from somebody if you want. You want to take the whole offensive staff? You can. They can't stop you. You hire a guy in the NFL, you can't always get all the assistants that he worked with and stuff. But in college, you could gut Oregon's entire offense if you wanted to. Good question, Jason. Good question. Where are you streaming from? I am in a hotel in Mobile, Alabama. And you're saying to yourself, Cody, why are you in Mobile, Alabama? I am in Mobile, Alabama because as the Reese's Senior Bowl would let you know from their slogan, and I would agree with them, the draft starts in Mobile. So the Reese's Senior Bowl is this weekend. You can watch it on NFL Network on Saturday. But all this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, they're going to have practices. Two different teams, the national team and the American team. They'll have practices. So two different practices each day. We'll have interviews with the players and prospects on Wednesday night, interviews on the field after. And it's the start of draft season. You kind of start to kick up draft season with this. And last year, the Senior Bowl produced a ton of talent, like 10 first rounders last year, and it's grown in importance year after year after year. And I loved covering it last year, and I made sure I could come cover it this year because of the importance that's grown. And I think back to Nick Caserio talking about the Senior Bowl, and he wasn't asked. It was just kind of like he slid it in there. The Senior Bowl is the last real football activities these guys do. They put pads on, they go one-on-one with other guys, they run drills, they run teams, and then they play in a football game. And then it's getting ready for the draft. It's 40-yard dash workouts and jump workouts. And, you do a little bit less football stuff at that point. And so I love the Senior Bowl. The Texans have had some success in the Senior Bowl over the years. Tank Dell was a Senior Bowl guy. Jared Patterson was a Senior Bowl guy. Let me make sure I got all my guys on here. Nico Collins was a Senior Bowl guy. And then you think back to some of these other names that have been Senior Bowl guys, like Cooper Kupp's made his name here as a Senior Bowl guy. Puka Nacua started to stand out as a Senior Bowl guy. Last year, Ricky Pearsall, Ladd McConkey, like the Senior Bowl's super important in the draft process, and I can't wait to cover it for the next few days. So be tuned in to here, be tuned into SNL, the Twitter account, Houston football, tons of coverage on it. I agree. I think Chip's the number one option. We'll see if we can get him out of Columbus. So here's the thing about Chip Kelly. Makes $2 million already. Highest paid offensive coordinator in the NFL this past season, according to Front Office Sports, $3 million. And that was Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken, and Monken's getting a contract extension. So I'm guessing Monken's getting a bump. So you may have to make him paid as much as Todd Monken, which, again, the Texans have the money, or beat Todd Monken's number to get Chip Kelly. Either way, like if you feel like he's the guy, he's the guy. Go get him and go pay the money. Yeah, I struggled with Double O's name. I can't believe nobody interviewed Brian Flores, didn't get interviewed for a head coach opening yet. I thought the Jets talked to him. They obviously ended up on Aaron Glenn, and I thought the Jaguars were going to talk to him. Hey, New Orleans is still open if you want to do that. Don't do that. Lane Kiffin, number 2 offense in the NCAA. Charlie Weiss Jr. is on that staff too. We talked about money. And look, for an offensive coordinator, money not a big deal. Lane Kiffin makes $9 million a year at Ole Miss. He's a playoff contender. It feels like year in, year out at Ole Miss. He's not leaving Ole Miss to come coach offense for the Houston Texans. I like Lane. I didn't like how he shot his mouth off about the playoff, but then he went out and backed it up in his bowl game. Made me some moolah with that. His quarterback's going to be here at the Senior Bowl, Jackson Dart. A lot of people like Jackson Dart. Super Chats go to the front of the line. Jaden, appreciate you. I thought we all agree we want someone who has called plays. Why'd they given from the Rams? He can't be better than Slowick. Yeah, so Nick Caley or Dave Ragone, not Jordan Hill's favorite because they haven't called plays before. I get it. I certainly understand the reservation with guys who haven't called plays. I understand it. The learning curve is immense. It is not always easy. Sometimes once you figured it out, you get figured out, which is what happened to Bobby Slowick. I certainly understand that. But I also have to hope that a couple of guys who've been under Sean McVay in Dave Ragone, the quarterback's coach, and Nick Caley, the tight ends coach / pass game coordinator, would have the ability to evolve and change on the fly and have just a little bit more flexibility to what they do and how they operate, and they could adjust on the fly. It'd be nice if you had a veteran mind on the staff with them to sort of help them out through some of those things, some of the growing pains. But I certainly understand the reservation with guys who haven't called plays before. I get it. All right, let's see here. Say what you want about the Cowboys. They've historically had a fantastic O-line. I'll take that. Yeah, look, O-line in Dallas has been pretty good for a few years. Tyron Smith, the J.J. Watt draft class back in the day. Still kicking around here, Tyron Smith is. Zach Martin, fantastic. They had Travis Frederick there for a little while. Yeah. Again, I think McCarthy's going to end up being a head coach. Dylan Lefebvre. Dylan says Case Keenum as QB coach makes most sense. Yeah, if Case Keenum wants to hang up the cleats and get a headset, he could certainly be a part of the quarterback situation. I don't know that he immediately is quarterback coach, but I'm not opposed to it. He's been sort of pseudo coaching for a few years now. So there are names that you are unfamiliar with that have better resumes, but this guy's familiar with your guy. He's familiar with how you operate. He knows his way around the building. Hey, just stay out of the locker room, stay in the coach's office now. Jordan Hill with his correction on a super chat. Correction, dude from the Rams can't be better than Slowick. He's never called plays. Why are you in favor of him? Well, I'm in favor of him for a variety of reasons. One, he coached in New England, had experience in the way that New England ran offense, and kind of was a grinder on his way up. I also like tight ends coaches because tight ends coaches have to coach receiving and blocking. So to have a little bit of a versatility to their game and to their coaching, I really like that about that. He also coached fullbacks when there was a fullback for the Patriots. So, he's coached receiving. He's coached blocking schemes, both rushing and passing as a tight ends coach. And something that I really liked about Caley as well is the Patriots offered him the offensive coordinator job last year to be Jerrod Mayo's offensive coordinator. And Albert Breer reported that he was offered $3 million, up to $3 million to be the offensive coordinator for the Patriots, which would have been one of the highest paid offensive coordinators in all of football. And he turned it down and decided to stay with Sean McVay for one more year. So why am I in favor of him? The multiplicity that tight ends coaches provide in their coaching history, as well as the Sean McVay sprinkle fairy offensive dust. Because look at the McVay guys. I mean, look at the McVay guys and where they all are. I mean, Kevin O'Connell, he'd never called plays, really good with Minnesota. Zach Taylor, he'd never called plays, really good with the Bengals. Who's the other name I'm forgetting here from the O'Connell tree? I mean, from the McVay tree. So O'Connell, Zach Taylor. Why am I blanking on this? The Sean McVay coaching tree that I'm doing a terrible job remembering off the top of my head. So many names swirling around. Now I got to learn about the Jeff Nixons. LaFleur in Green Bay. And it goes further too. I mean, Jed Fish is the head coach at Washington now after being the head coach at Arizona for a little while. Liam Cohen was there. He's a head coach now. Thomas Brown's been kicking around a little bit. He's going to get another opportunity on another staff. Previously been an offensive guy that was not good in Chicago. So, again, the McVay sprinkle offensive fairy dust is one of the big reasons, but the varied history of the tight end position and what you ask out of the tight ends is why I like him too. Who's your ideal candidate? And Nick Caley. Mark Brunell, Lions quarterback coach, last I looked, unless something changed. He's on the list, light on the NFL experience, coached a bunch in high school, was pretty successful, best my understanding. How about Bill Lazor? Double O asked about Bill Lazor. Bill Lazor's on the staff. Bill Lazor, part of the offensive failure as the old guy in the room, not great. That happened when you were the old guy in the room. You're supposed to keep it from happening. Lazor's called plays a couple of times in his NFL career. It's been not great. Jerry Lucan says, go visit Battleship Alabama. It's on my list. I'm hoping to get that done. Yes. I'll just wait for you to tell me who we need to watch a highlight of and who we need to draft. You got it, Panda. I'll have a list for you. I'm actually writing up, when we get done with this, I'm going to write up Senior Bowl prospects, like my pre-start of Senior Bowl crush list. Some of these names out here. No Cam Scatterbo at the Senior Bowl. I think injuries caught up to him, so no Cam Scatterbo for the Senior Bowl, but there's some good running backs here, some good wide receivers here. So, which wide receivers are your favorite in the draft right now, Cody? Ibuka from Ohio State. He's everything that the Texans love about Robert Woods, and then he's got more juice than current day Robert Woods has. So he blocks well. He does all the little things at wide receiver. So Ibuka, Luther Burden's a freak. I love Luther Burden. Missouri's offense stunk this year. I say stunk. It took a step back from last year. Last year, Luther Burden was awesome, but he was still good this past year. Tet McMillan's the best, but they're not getting Tet McMillan. He's going top 10. So let's see. You feeling Patterson improving as a center, at least over Juice? Yeah, I mean, I'd give Patterson the first crack at being the starting center next year. I don't know that I'm guaranteeing anybody on the offensive line outside of Blake Fisher and Laremy Tunsil a starting spot. Common Sense 200. Any Chiefs roster shakeup next year or fourth Super Bowl? I think they're definitely going to get some roster shakeup stuff coming. I mean, they're big. One of their offensive linemen, I just don't know how they're going to be able to keep him. They're still kind of cobbling it together with the wide receivers, though. I would think at some point next year they're going to get Rashee Rice back, and him plus Xavier Worthy plus whatever they cobble together should be interesting. I believe Kelsey's going to retire, so they're going to lose Travis Kelce, but he was kind of the postman this year. I'm mailing it in a little bit a couple of different times till the Texans played him. Man, I don't know. They're going to get the third. I kind of like Philly in this game. I don't know that they're going to get the third, Common. LaFave. I'll get it right next time, Dylan. LaFave. Let's go get Adrian Peterson to be our running back coach. I heard he might need some money. That's mean, but also maybe true. Sub Stoots still laughing at the Stoots shut up from a few videos ago. Could have been anything that I said to warrant that that response from any number of people. Drum says he thinks Nixon might be the guy. So Jeff Nixon, just to give you the little reset here, if you're just joining us, Jeff Nixon, the offensive coordinator for the Syracuse Orange, interviewed for the Texans' vacant offensive coordinator position. Nixon coordinated the Orange to the 21st scoring offense in football this year, the number one pass offense in football this year, and the 126th rushing offense in football this year. He previously called plays for the Baylor Bears, where they got better each year on offense, called plays as an interim offensive coordinator in Carolina. It didn't go well. He only averaged 13.6 points per game in that stint. He's coached under Chip Kelly. He's coached under Matt Rule. He's coached under Andy Reid and Brian Daboll, most recently when he was in the NFL in 2023 as the running backs coach. Let's see here. This tickled me. People smoking the devil's lettuce, thinking Eric Bieniemy is a good choice. It did not go well for Bieniemy when he was out of Kansas City. Nixon wants to compete against defenses and throw them off. I'm tired of predictable offenses that can't adjust to only work when key players are present. Yeah, another element of Nixon is Kyle McCord was thought to be like, oh, like he sucks. He's not any good. Ohio State got rid of him, and he transferred to Syracuse. Like, oh, we'll never hear from that guy again. Oh, actually, they're going to lead the league in passing. Lead the nation in passing, I should say. So that's a really good job by Nixon. I just can't get over that a former running back and former running back coach has the 126th rushing offense. And people really like – that's another funny thing about it's another funny thing about Syracuse is people like their running back who's here in Mobile for the Senior Bowl. People like, let me get his name here. Yeah, LaQuint Allen. People really like LaQuint Allen. So it's like, what's going on here? How come you're 126th in rushing offense? You never needed to run the ball? Cebu, thoughts on TJ Yates? He just got the quarterback coach label last year, been in Atlanta for a few years, previously coached as assistant quarterbacks coach and was a wide receivers coach for a little bit. Yeah, so, I mean, a few years off probably. Could he be on the staff in some role? You know, maybe. I can't imagine that they're trying to make too many changes in Atlanta right now. Who do you think Caserio leans towards? I would tell you he probably leans towards Caley. I would tell you that's why Caley got the opportunity in the first place with the Texans. Caley's interviewed for the Texans job before. He interviewed or in the same cycle that Bobby Slowick and Cliff Kingsbury interviewed for the job. So Caley's interviewed, D'Amico Ryans knows him. He's interviewed him for this job before. And then Caley went and got 2 years of Sean McVay's sprinkle offense dust put on him. You know, so it's, I think he's a really exciting candidate. Big Mex 777, let's go steal Cliff Kingsbury. Unfortunately, can't do that. Dylan asks, any sneak peeks for who you're excited for at the Senior Bowl? Yes. I'll give you a couple names, couple of running backs. Devin Neal from Kansas, just, former big-time recruit, ton of success at Kansas. Stuck around year after year after year. Brashard Smith from SMU at running back. Really excited to see him. Thomas Fadone from Nebraska, the tight end. Terrence Ferguson, tight end from Oregon. Gunnar Helm, tight end from Texas. Jake Brenningstool, tight end from Clemson. A few tight ends here. I like. And then Jim Nagy, the director of the Senior Bowl, he brought up the name Moliki Matavo. Matavo from UCLA. So, I'm obviously keeping an eye on him. Tez Johnson from Oregon. He's kind of in the Tank Dell mode. Savion Williams from TCU is getting a ton of buzz. Oh my God. People love Savion Williams. So that's an interesting one. And then I can already tell you're going to be one of my favorite prospects. And, he had a cool story to get to where he is now, and then his story got an add-on based off what happened in New Year's Eve in New Orleans. But it's Jack Besh from TCU, wide receiver. His brother was one of the people that unfortunately was killed in the terrorist attack in New Orleans. And they're going to wear his name was Tiger Besh. They're going to wear a Princeton 7, which was Tiger Besh's number at Princeton, on their helmets this week at the Senior Bowl to honor Besh. And his brother, Jack Besh, is a very good football player at wide receiver, probably a day 2 guy. And the Texans would eat him up. They would love that guy. Chris, good to see you, man. Appreciate you checking in. Dallas hired Nick Sorensen as their special teams coordinator. Yeah, he was the 49ers defensive coordinator last year. Eee. Tim Kelly or Bobby? Who was better? Bobby. I know the money isn't there without restructures, etc., but I'd like to see the Texans possibly add a veteran center. I do feel like going through free agency, you need a veteran center option in case the young guys don't work out, as well as a veteran right guard is what I'd be chasing if I was the Texans as well. Where does Nixon rank on your list of possible OCs? Okay, my list in order. You know what? Let's type it out here so that everybody can. We'll go Kaylee. I'm going to put Kelly there. I'm going to put Chip number 2, but don't think he'll leave. Okay. Number 3 for me is Dave Ragone. Number 4 for me is Josh McCown. Number 5 for me is I'd put Jeff Nixon there. And number 6 for me is Jerrod Johnson. And I would say that, a couple of other people don't really kind of make the order, make the list. A guy like Will Stein, I just don't think he's interested in taking the job. I like Tanner Ingstrands from Detroit. I just don't think he's interested in taking the job, though them hiring that young guy. And so Kaylee's still my top guy. Chip, if he'd leave. Dave Ragone, I like the McVay sprinkle sauce. McCown, I just like the quarterback experience. Nixon, you take Kyle McCord, turn him into a monster. That's a great job by you. Jerrod Johnson, and then fill out the rest of the candidates as you see fit. I would have had Clint Kubiak ahead of Nixon and ahead of Jerrod Johnson. But obviously Clint Kubiak is going to be the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator. Jumbo Fisher. No, thank you. No, thank you on Jimbo Fisher either. Get exclusive with St. Nick Stoots. I am Santa Claus fat. I hope they draft better, bigger, stronger, 300-pound interior offensive linemen. Yeah, there's going to be some big humans on the interior offensive line this year. Going to be a lot of converted tackles that come in and play guard too, based on what I'm reading and hearing about this draft class. What do you think about getting a tight end in this draft? Do you think we trade for an offensive lineman? You could trade for one. Like if you could swap out somebody who's like a depth piece on your defense for an offensive lineman off another team because they like that guy and you like their guy, maybe. I wouldn't trade a pick for an offensive lineman, though. Caserio as the OC? No, don't do that. TJ Yates being the OC for the Texans Super Bowl run would be legendary. LOL. He won our first playoff game too, didn't he? LMAO. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Let's see here. Who was the guy that coached the Roughnecks in 2020? That dude would be a great OC. Roughnecks averaged like 30 points. Okay, let's see if I can find that. Roughnecks OC. Wasn't that Andre Johnson's? Wasn't that Andre Johnson's friend? That was on the. Oh, they ran. Oh, okay. June Jones was the head coach. They ran June Jones's system, and Chris Miller was the wide receiver, or was the offensive coordinator, and he's been out of coaching for a few years. Yeah, so they can't hire June Jones. Yep, Nick Caley was with Caserio in New England, and Nick Caley also went to John Carroll University, where Nick Caserio, Frank Ross, Dave Ziegler, who's now a Titans front office guy, Josh McDaniels, like a lot of NFL people went to John Carroll, including Nick Caserio. Who was the OC for the Sentinels when Keanu was the QB? I think Keanu called his own plays. His own plays. Trade Schultz. Nobody wants him. Let's see here. Oh, you like your little Tate Ratledge, do you, Brandon? Offensive lineman for Georgia. He's here. I expected to be here, accepted an invite here. He's here. Got to start making better decisions with money. Can't throw it at mediocrity like Schultz and 3/4 of the offensive line. Yeah, it's tough. They have some tough contracts. Titus Howard, Shaq Mason, Dalton Schultz, all tough contracts. Titus never made sense. Shaq made sense. He played well in the first year, was awful in the second year. And then Schultz, I was wrong on Dalton Schultz. I thought they had to do whatever they could do to keep him, and that was wrong. If we don't get Ibuka, would love Besh on day 2. Yeah, Besh on day 2. Yeah, for sure. Super Bowl food review. I'll throw it on the back end of one of the Senior Bowl videos. I did a drink review from the road. So I'll throw it on the back end of one of the videos. Besh played tight end to LSU for transferring to TCU. Yes, he's got a very fun football background. And again, the intangible crap that the Texans love from wide receivers, very impressive when it comes to Besh. Very impressive. Oh, this guy's a mammoth. So this guy, if you're unfamiliar with who Deone Walker is, don't let D'Amico Ryans know anything about him. But he is a massive human being. And he is he looks like how do I phrase this? He looks like a movie character. He looks like that's the best way I would say this. He looks like a movie character. He's an interior defensive lineman. He's enormous. He's almost 6'8", 340 pounds, very athletic. I would think at that height and weight, also very strong. And so I am super interested to see him at the Senior Bowl this week. Super interested. I don't know that the Texans really can afford to draft him when they have other needs, but don't let D'Amico Ryans see this guy. He might be a Texan. They're the best defense in the world, just don't have any offensive players because D'Amico saw Deone Walker at the Senior Bowl and was like, gotta have him. Yeah, the not on the same page thing that's making the rounds, certainly an intriguing element. I mean, if they got an argument, like it's okay to have a differing opinion and disagree with somebody. That's a great sign of a job interview. If you have the ability to challenge authority respectfully, that's a great sign of an employee. That's what a pre-draft process is. I'm not super worried about that. Yeah, cuss Bobby. I don't know. I haven't heard what Lance had to say. I haven't read it yet. Just kind of seen the snippets make the rounds on social media. Who's the best wide receiver in this draft, or the best wide receivers in this draft? Ted McMillan from Arizona is the best. Travis Hunter's wide receiver. He's really good, but he's not going to play wide receiver. He's going to play cornerback. Luther Burden, Emeka Ibuka, and then it's really pick your poison after that. I mean, it could go a variety of different ways, including some guys here in Mobile. Mike Bowie says, draft Mason Taylor. He should be a third-round pick and play at LSU, so that checks Nick's box. He's talking about how Caserio basically only drafts Power 5 guys. Excellent tight end, Jason Taylor's son, third to fourth round pick, in my opinion. Yeah, and also I listened to NFL stock exchange, Trevor and Connor, and they were a little down on Taylor. He's at the Senior Bowl. He's an accepted invite. Let's see, accepted invite doesn't mean anything until they get on the field. Accepted invite. So let's see what he can do here in the draft process. All right, resetting it here one more time for the folks, and then we'll kind of wrap this thing up here with a few more questions. So the surprise interview candidate, Jeff Nixon. Jeff Nixon, the offensive coordinator for Syracuse. This past year, Syracuse was 21st in scoring offense. They were the top passing offense in all of college football. They were the 126th rushing offense. Nixon is 50 years old. He's a running back at West Virginia and Penn State before he got into coaching. Made his way around college where he coached running backs, special teams, tight ends, wide receivers, ultimately ended up as an offensive coordinator for Matt Rule at Baylor. He was a coordinator for 3 seasons at Baylor, improved each year in the offense, 98th to 63rd to 27th, left to Carolina, ended up as the interim offensive coordinator in Carolina. Didn't go well, 13.6 points per game as the interim offensive coordinator. He's coached under Andy Reid for a few seasons, coached under Brian Daboll, coached under Chip Kelly, and then, of course, most recently was at Syracuse. It's a little intro there on new stadium. I'm vehemently against any sort of new stadium initiative. I'm vehemently against it. So I like NRG Stadium. If they want to make improvements, dump money into it, make it better. If the freaking Superdome can continue to get stuff, the NRG can continue to get stuff. I'm vehemently against a new stadium. And again, the interviewed coaches today for the offense coordinator position, Syracuse OC Jeff Nixon, Texans quarterback coach Jerrod Johnson. 6'6", 330. He's almost 6'8". Almost 6'8". Yeah, he's a nasty fella. What do you think about Trey Harris and Savion Williams? Trey Harris is the Ole Miss wide receiver. A lot of injuries at the back end of the season that robbed him of some SEC success, but was pretty solid his previous year and then had a lot of success before he got hurt this year, but it wasn't against great opponents. So be interested to see how the draft process plays out for him. And then Savion Williams he's like Bigfoot. He's like this mysterious, people can't figure out why TCU didn't use him or like didn't get more out of him. He's built like Calvin Johnson, like physically, his physical body is like Calvin Johnson styled, like from a height, weight standpoint. And he's here. He's TCU wide receiver. He's at the Senior Bowl, so very excited to see him. We need to trade up and draft Tyler Warren, the Penn State tight end. Yeah, I just don't – trading up's just tough, man. Is it Caserio or D'Amico at the Senior Bowl? To be determined. I saw Nick Caserio last year. I'm undetermined on D'Amico Ryans' Senior Bowl attendance record. Is Joe Mixon recruiting T. Higgins true, and what do we do with Diggs, Dell season-ending injury 2 seasons in a row? We can't do anything with Tank Dell. You got to figure out if he's going to ever be healthy again. I would not re-sign Stefon Diggs, and it doesn't matter if Joe Mixon and the entire Texans roster recruited T. Higgins. They can't afford him. T. Higgins is too expensive. So, can't afford him. You think they get a Stingley extension done? Absolutely. I like Oregon tight end Terrence Ferguson. He's at the Senior Bowl. Supposed to be the Senior Bowl. That'll be a fun watch. A fun evaluation. Hit that like button, people. Would appreciate that. Who got interviewed today? Jerrod Johnson, Jeff Nixon. Okay. With Nico always getting injured, we need to draft another number one wide receiver. I mean, look, easier said than done. Easier said than done. I mean, Nico wasn't even a number one when you drafted him. He's third round, turned into the top guy. They need to get rid of the salary cap. I don't like that. That's not good. I don't like that. Sean Castillo. RJ Harvey is a running back this team needs, most explosive in the draft. RJ Harvey is the UCF running back. He has a tremendous amount of success. He had some of the same statistical impressiveness that Ashton Genty had this year, though not quite exactly the same from a total yardage standpoint. He's supposed to be at the Senior Bowl. He will be a fun watch. Sometimes he was just Big 12 fast, and then sometimes he's real fast. So we'll see. We'll see. Okay, put a bow on that one. Jeff Nixon and Jerrod Johnson got their interviews in the books, according to Aaron Wilson. Jeff Nixon's the Syracuse offensive coordinator. We should all know at this point who Jerrod Johnson is, the Texans quarterback coach. Nick Caley, who is my top offensive coordinator candidate, interviewed for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers job. So that's something to pay attention to. The Buccaneers, another open offensive coordinator job, fighting for offensive coordinators with you. And Caley is a guy that I feel like would very much fit what the Texans would want out of their offensive coordinator. So those are the guys. A little bit about the Senior Bowl. We'll have a ton more about the Senior Bowl. We'll have a ton more about other coaching candidates. I'm going to go update the coaching candidate list on Houston football right now. If you haven't checked that out, it is very much worth subscribing and checking it out. Plus, all the Senior Bowl stuff that you could ever want will be on the Houston football site/newsletter. You sign up for it, it gets emailed right to you, or you can go on the website, check it out anytime. Stoots, what about Doug Peterson? I don't think Doug Peterson would take an offensive coordinator job, and he was very disappointing in Jacksonville those final 2 years. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up here for this live. We'll have more. We'll have SNL every day this week with a time adjustment on Wednesday, but it should be 4 o'clock every day this week, with the exception of Wednesday because I'll be doing Senior Bowl stuff. You may get Landry Locker solo that day. You may get SNL much later in the day. That remains to be seen. We'll have lives. We'll have videos. Hopefully get some guests booked for the draft process as well. Lots of fun stuff to get to here. And the draft starts in Mobile, and it gets going tomorrow with the practices for the Senior Bowl. And I'm here on location. I'm here on location covering this thanks to you guys. Like, I hope this always comes off as like I am able to do this, talk Texans with you guys, cover these great events, come to this stuff, travel, drive to, drive out here to Mobile, Alabama on a Monday. Got up at 5 o'clock this morning, got on the road, got out here, went and ate at I don't know many places serving you a $17.99 steak dinner that's actually worth a damn, but I went and ate a little steak dinner here. Okay, it was delicious. Briquettes or something like that was the name of the place. Great spot. Great spot. Homemade Caesar dressing, fantastic. Really good. Should have done a food review at the table. It's fantastic. But really, honestly, I get to do this cool stuff because y'all watch and y'all thumbs up and y'all subscribe and y'all super chat, and I greatly appreciate everything. Everything. I greatly appreciate everything, and I hope that comes off. And thank y'all for all the support. I'm less than 2 years into this solo endeavor. Had a little running mate this year with Landry Locker, who does the same thing, and I've never been happier doing what I do. And it's all because of you guys. So thank you, as always. Whenever I get to go on these cool trips, I always get a little bit like, oh, like it's so cool I get to do this. Because as I was coming over here, I'm talking to my buddy who sells insurance, and he's like, "I'll go to the office." I'm like, "That sucks. Going to Mobile. I'm going on a road trip." I was in a gas station in Baton Rouge talking to him. So Gustavo says, "Need another meetup." We will have. I'm hoping to put together a draft series. So small groups. We'll pop it around a bunch of different spots in town, and hopefully we get some guests in there to really kind of dive in and dig in on some of your draft questions. And then we'll just do some regular get-togethers and hangouts, and we're definitely going to do some draft, like actual draft event stuff as well. So definitely have that. So thank you all again. Thank you, everybody. We end the streams the same way, the live streams each and every time. It's my hope for you. It's my charge for you as well. I want you to eat good. I want you to sleep good. I want you to be good. And we'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.